Good evening. On behalf of the Kingston City School District and the Kingston City School District Board of Education, I want to thank you for participating in our town hall tonight. We're recording this meeting and it will be posted on the Kingston City School District YouTube channel tomorrow morning. Tonight, I have a brief presentation and after that, we'll try to answer questions you submit at the end of that presentation. You can send your questions anytime during this meeting. You don't have to wait till after the presentation. Because of the volume of questions, we may not get to every question posted, but we will be holding these town hall meetings frequently throughout this process and into the fall. Our next town hall meeting will be tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Questions and answers from our meeting today will be compiled into a running document that will also be posted on our website later this week, and you can find it in our reopening link at the upper left side of our website. Last Friday evening, the Board of Education, on my recommendation, decided to begin our school year in an all remote learning model. We know this is not how any of us would like to start our school year, but based on several factors that I will outline in my presentation and what we see around the country, in other schools, colleges, universities, and even in professional athletics, we feel that this is what is the best to ensure the safety of our students, faculty, staff, and community. Tonight, I will provide a brief overview of what families and students can expect from our remote learning program, and then take your questions. As always, I like to start with our community spread for COVID-19, just so we have an idea of what's going on here in Ulster County and in Kingston City School District. So we have 107 active cases currently in Ulster County. And when you look to the right, those are cases within our KCSD attendance areas. So just a little fewer than half of the cases are in the Kingston City School District at this time. As I stated at the beginning, the Kingston City School District Board of Education announced Friday, August 14th, that all students will begin the year with remote learning starting on September 8th, and that will continue through October 13th. This week, which by Friday the 21st, remote learning. Oh, I skipped one. This is where we have technical difficulties, so we're going backward. So one of the questions that people have is, why are we starting remote? There are several reasons. First reason is we are concerned with our stockpile of PPE and making sure that we have adequate PPE for all of our faculty, staff, and students. While we've spent a lot of time, effort, and money making sure we have most of what we need, there are still several items that we cannot get or are slow in arrival, or they're in back order, or we don't have enough of. So this going through the 5-week, waiting for 5 weeks gives us an opportunity to make sure we have everything we need for a long period of time with our students and staff in our buildings. Another reason is to make sure we have proper training of our safety protocols and procedures for our faculty, staff, and administration. Also, family and student testing, family and student training is required, and we want to have opportunity to do that training on things like social distancing, proper face mask wearing, and also things like washing hands and how to properly ride the bus, social distance on the bus, and most importantly, home evaluation of your student to make sure if they are experiencing symptoms that are consistent with COVID-19 that you do not send them to school. So this will give us opportunity to provide outreach to our families to help them with those areas. It will also help us to allocate our human resources and determine which of our family or teachers cannot come to school, so we can make sure we can make reasonable accommodations for our faculty and staff. Final school building preparations are necessary as we move into our hybrid model. As you know, many students will be attending buildings that they are not usually attending, and we need to move furniture, create class space, move other teachers into more appropriate class space, and this will give us that opportunity as well. We'll also want to observe and evaluate the community spread of COVID-19, especially this time of year, at the end of the summer travel vacation months. We want to make sure that we're not going to see a spike in the COVID-19 here in Ulster County. Considering how low our numbers are right now, we need to watch that. We also want to observe other trends regarding COVID-19 as far as testing availability, and again, looking at what could happen coming into the fall. This week, by Friday, August 21st. Our remote learning plan is due to the New York State Education Department and will be posted on our Kingston City School District website. Also posted on our Kingston City District website will be our testing and tracing protocols. Earlier this week, technology needs survey was sent to all of our families, and I want to encourage everyone to please, whether you need a device or not, if you would please fill out that survey so we have a really solid number, solid data around who needs what and how we can make sure we're most efficiently use what we have as far as technology is concerned. We will be entering the school using our hybrid plan that was presented 2 weeks ago. That's set to begin on October 13th. During these 5 weeks, the district will continue to look to improve the hybrid plan and as teacher and safety training continues, we will also look for more space and the possibility of bringing other students to school live. So we'll continue to work on this plan. It's a living document. It's not something that is stagnant or that will stay the same. We're hoping to improve on what we presented to the Board of Education 2 weeks ago. Many people want to know what to expect from remote learning. So we wanted to just spend a little time talking about some of the things that these expectations that we have and things that parents can get ready for when we move forward into the remote learning plan for the first 5 weeks. First of all, students will use Microsoft Teams. Teachers, administrators, teaching assistants, and all support staff will be present and available in our school buildings every day. Families can communicate with all faculty in the same manner that they would during a regular school operation, email, using Teams calls, or phone calls to the building. Instruction will be both synchronous and asynchronous, and live contact with the teacher our students will have live contact with the teacher every day. Lessons will be aligned with New York State standards. Students will follow a modified version of their regular daily schedule. Parents will receive weekly communication about assignment, student performance, including building principal messages every week. IEPs will be followed and services will be provided to all students with disabilities and students who have 504s. Social emotional learning and support will be continuously provided throughout the remote learning period and beyond. Technology will be provided to our students when necessary. Technical support for our families will be provided by our IT department. Our BOCES programs will be phased in accordance with the Ulster BOCES plan. Response to intervention, academic intervention services, and English language services will be scheduled on an individual basis to meet specific student needs. Students who are in out-of-district placements will attend in person those programs that are open for live instruction, and transportation will be provided. Regular updates regarding the status of in-person instruction will be communicated to families through our communication department and future town hall meetings that will take place regularly throughout the fall. Just one last reminder that we will be having another town hall tomorrow at 11 o'clock. And now we'll open the floor for questions. Yes, I'm ready. What will the minimum number of hours be required of direct remote instruction for a first grader? What will that be daily? That will be communicated to all families in our remote learning plan. Again, we want to be flexible, but we also want to create structure for all of our students. So that is being worked on, and that is we're working with our teachers to put that together. And when we have our remote learning plan comes out Friday, we'll have very specific number of hours, right down to minutes of instruction for all of our students, no matter what grade. A typical class has 25 students, and the plan has fewer than 14 in a classroom. Will the students actually have the same teacher when they return to school? Are 25 students assigned to the remote class? So yes, 25 students would be assigned to the remote class. A teacher would have their regular course load in that class, and when they come back to school with 14 in a classroom, it's a very good possibility the teacher would have the same 25 students. They would be split between two rooms with the support of a teaching assistant. Are teachers expected to see a student after school hours, since many will be at daycare and many students are unable to be seen between the hours of 9 and 3? Many daycares have said they cannot do remote learning. Again, we're going to be as flexible as we can be. We do have certain expectations of students being in attendance, and we have requirements through the state around student attendance. So we are going to try to be as flexible as we can for families to make sure students get what they need. How will AIS be utilized at this time? How will they know who qualifies and what needs to address? It was also extremely difficult to have students manage going to a different team for AIS services. Yes, that's something that we're continuing, that we were aware of and that we're working on. And actually, I mentioned it during the slides earlier that those services will continue to be delivered. We will continue to have our data meetings. We'll continue to have our meetings with our faculty and staff about our students and their performance and their needs. And we will have, I think, a much easier transition for our students into AIS or reading or any of the other services that they might need. If I have a computer for my student to use, but it stops working or isn't compatible with programs, would I be able to obtain a Chromebook for my students after the school year starts? So first of all, just to say that just about any device is compatible with Microsoft Teams. Also coming out in our remote learning plan, we'll let you know what the devices, what devices are acceptable. They're also on our survey. If you go onto our survey, which I continue to encourage people to submit, it does also say what devices and what operating systems you need to run Microsoft Teams. So, but I mean, we're going to do our best. If you start off the year with your own device and something happens and it doesn't work anymore and you need help from us, our tech department will do everything they can to either A, help you with your machine, or B, find a machine for you that will be provided by the district. Will shared staff be responsible for servicing every building they are in, or will they work with their home school? During the spring, it was difficult for some teachers to manage working within multiple buildings. Yeah, that's a good question. Again, I think that's a question you would have to work with your principal to find out what your assignment is, if you're an individual teacher, to find out what your assignment is for next year. If you are scheduled to work between two buildings, I think that's a conversation. I mean, we tried to completely eliminate that in the hybrid model. Well, I shouldn't say completely, we tried to limit that in the hybrid model. But as far as working in this model, we're working very similarly to how we would in the regular school year. So, your assignment would be the same as it would have been during the regular school year. But if there's a concern about how you can work back and forth between two buildings, again, I ask you to talk to your principal, who can guide you in the right direction to get you the assistance you need. And if it's training, just about the use of Teams or technology in any way. Has the Department of Health given a protocol during remote learning when a teacher tests positive for COVID? Will the whole school quarantine and teach from home in that case? Yeah, the difference between having all the students there and having the teachers there, obviously, is there is fewer people that people come in contact with every day. There wouldn't necessarily, if you were in a school building and one teacher had COVID-19, it's a very good possibility that most of the other teachers in the building didn't come into contact with that teacher at all. So the department, my understanding of the COVID-19 protocols would be that we would do isolation, quarantine, contact tracing, and then they would make those decisions around the contact tracing of who that individual could have come in contact with during their day, and that's how we would make our decisions about who would be quarantined or have teachers teach from home. Have you considered putting the 3rd and 4th grade students at Kinston High School and leaving the 5th and 6th grade students at the middle schools? That's been suggested, and we've had that conversation as well. I think it's something we'll continue to look at over the next 5 weeks. I'm wondering about possibilities of some kind of small-scale in-person gathering of students and teachers in addition to remote learning. This could be at the beginning of the school year or in upcoming weeks outside or inside. Yeah, that's being worked on. Each of our principals is working on things, and then we're going to allow our principals to do things that are building specific because each building has their own culture. But we're working on doing something at least so we can have some point in time where students and parents actually get to physically see and meet their classroom teacher. So that's in the works, and that will be communicated through your building principal as we go into the school year and during the school year. In the spring, Bailey students were not permitted to have their video cameras on for class meetings. Will this policy ever be reconsidered in favor of students and teachers seeing each other? That is not a district policy, and I had not heard that before. We encourage the students actually to have their cameras on. Even in part of our remote learning plan, we talk about some of the etiquette about having your video cameras on, and the expectation that students are present and the teacher is present, and you can actually see each other through the computer. So that's a big part of the team's platform. So if that is not a district policy, and I'm not aware of anyone who in any classroom where that was, or any building where that was a policy or practice or procedure. Is it possible for middle school teachers to meet their students before school starts this fall, perhaps via Teams, by phone, during a superintendent's conference day? Again, that's something we let the principals kind of run with that and make some decisions on how they want to create that kind of orientation or just a meet and greet in the safest way possible. So our principals are working on that. Can you explain the process for requesting technology? I saw a lot of parents online today having trouble with the process. I want to ensure that everyone that needs to have access to it. We haven't put a process in place for requesting technology yet, so that's going to come after we have our survey. So we have a survey. That's not a request for technology. That's just a survey, so we can get data on how many people need technology, where we are with accessibility to the internet, so we can start to make sure that we have everything we need. So that is not requesting the technology at this point. That will come probably later next week. I recently read that Ulster County will be testing all school staff for COVID, and I'm assuming that includes substitutes employees as well. When will substitutes employees receive any communication about COVID testing and other ways to be prepared to return to work? Well, our testing protocols are in conjunction with the Department of Health. The testing of teachers and/or any substitutes or any of our support staff, anyone who works in the district, we will communicate that. Again, these are voluntary testing. We're not requiring teachers to take COVID test, but really I think the Department of Health in Ulster County was really looking to work with us and help us and offer this to our teachers, and they do have the capacity to do it. So we're working on getting all of that together, but that will be communicated if and when those tests are happening. When a teacher is out, will the class have a substitute? How will these substitutes be trained in remote learning? Thank you. Yes, if a teacher is out, we will have a substitute, and we are working together with it. We will be working together with our substitutes union to provide them with the proper training and the proper access to Teams and the technology that they need as well. So we're gonna use we'll work Teams just as if it was a regular school year. So if a teacher's out sick, we're gonna bring a substitute to take that class for the day. Right, I have a child that's going to pre-K at Mahar. Will that be virtual also? At this point, yes. Mahar pre-K will be virtual for now. How will you accommodate students with 504 plans, as they may have more difficulties with remote learning? Yeah, that's true, and obviously I can't tell you overall. Each 504 plan is different, and it's unique to the individual to say how we would do it. Kind of in a blanket. It would be difficult to say, but we're going to work with that student, work with their family to make sure we can do everything we can to make the modifications work for them within this model. Is there any possibility of school reopening fully with all grades in attendance, not all or partial remote? Well, I certainly hope so. And that is really where we want to be. As I said in the beginning, we don't want to be here. You don't want to be here. Our teachers don't want to be in this situation. We want September 8th to be the first day of school with, 6,500 students coming into schools and ready to learn, sitting in their classrooms with their teachers, and all the other things that go along with in-person school. So we're hoping that we'll be back to, a completely normal, or at least as close to normal as possible, with all our students in the buildings soon. I don't, a lot of people ask who's in charge of this, and really the virus is in charge of this. So we are continuing to monitoring our community spread, and we'll take our, our cues from our Department of Health, the State Education Department, and hopefully that will be sometime soon. Hopefully that will be something that happens this year. Is there a chance your hybrid model will change to allow all students to come into school and have face-to-face instruction on a cohort schedule? As I said before, we're continuing to work on that, on our hybrid model. So that hybrid model is not just sitting there and that's what we're going to do, and we're not looking at other things. We're looking at other space. We're looking at other opportunities. We are committed to the K through 6 being in UP K through 6 being in person full time for our students, but we're looking to see how we can expand the number of students who are here in person, even if it is through some sort of rotation. But again, we need to find the space. Is there anything in place for the help of mental health issues for older kids? Yes, we have, we're required through this plan, but we also have always had a pretty robust social emotional learning program. We have highly qualified social workers. We have our crisis teams, our director of prevention and safety. So we have quite a pretty strong apparatus of mental health and social emotional learning faculty, staff, and supports here in Kingston City School District. So we're regardless of the age of the students, younger or older. My child receives special education services and attends an out-of-district school that is opening with students in the building with face-to-face learning. Will my child's special education services be face-to-face or remote? If your child is in an out-of-district placement in a school other than the Kingston City School District, and that school district has submitted their plans, has been approved to reopen and have face-to-face learning with their students, their student will attend that program. That is our plan for our out-of-district placement students for this year, and I think an important piece for parents in that situation to know is we will continue to provide transportation to those programs. How are Spanish-speaking parents able to ask their questions and get answers? Are the town hall meetings interpreted for the Spanish-speaking families in our community? If not, would you consider a town hall specifically to address the concerns of our large Spanish-speaking community? These are all translated. You can translate all the town hall presentations in Spanish, but yes, I would definitely consider that. I would be more than happy to work with someone from our Spanish-speaking community to do an all Spanish speaking town hall. That would be not a problem at all. And I know just working with Mary Alfieri at the radio station, maybe that's something we could do through that and with her. But there are many things, there are many possibilities there, but I would definitely do that. What do you mean by a modified schedule? A modified schedule is exactly that, a modified schedule. So a modified schedule would mean it would look very similar, identical really to your student's schedule. So if you are a middle school or a high school parent, you will see the remote learning plan on Friday, and you will get your student's schedule later on this month. And you will see there are some changes in the length of classes. There are changes with longer breaks for students during the day. So there are a lot of different changes in there, as well as maybe, and also looking at having classes longer, but not every day. Those are different things that you could see see. So it will look very much like the schedule. They'll have the same, really the same courses that they'll be taking, but they may be in different length, or they may be offered on different days. What will happen with BOCES students? We're just, as I said earlier, we're just looking for, waiting for the BOCES phase-in plan, which I think we'll have in our hands by the end of the week. And then we can put in a program in place around BOCES students. So our CTE students, which are career and technical education students, will have 1 day a week. When BOCES phases back into in-person, we'll have 1 day a week there where it'll be all Kingston students there. So we will participate, we will provide transportation, our students will be in our CTE programs. Our students are in out-of-district placement for our students with disabilities who are in our BOCES programs also will go to BOCES and will be transported. What is the plan to get middle and high school students back in person? At this point, we're continuing to work on our hybrid plan. Right now, our hybrid plan remains the same with K through 6, UP K through 6, to be in person, and for our high school students and middle school students to be remote. But we're continuing to look for opportunities to bring students in and have more students participate in face-to-face education. When can we expect to see schedules on Parent Portal, please? You can expect to see them by the last week in August. My child's IEP states one-on-one. Will that one-on-one be able to come to my house and receive their services? Right now, we are in all remote. There is no one-to-one. There's no in-person learning right now. But I encourage you to reach out to our special education department and speak to the people there to find out what that means for your child. What will happen if remote and a snow day? Well, I'm hoping we're not going to have any snow days this year, but there, if we have a snow day and it's remote, we'll have that would be in the hybrid model, where we would have our K through 6 students who wouldn't be able to get to school. So there would be a snow day, and we would just call a cancellation for all instruction for that day. How close to the October 13th date will we learn about next steps? This will help parents plan the more notice we have. Yeah, we're going to continue to evaluate this throughout all 5 weeks. Right now, if you're planning, I would plan as the hybrid plan that we put in place 2 weeks ago. So if you're looking to plan, that is still the core of what we're going to do with our UP K through 6 live in person every day, and our 7 through 12 remote. So if you're looking to plan and starting now, that would be the way I would plan. But we will be continuing to look to expand as we go forward. My child will not be able to complete work until I get home from work. Will they be penalized? No, I don't think they would be penalized. There'll be very clear expectations and very clear flexibility also for our faculty, staff, and for our students. But we understand that there will be some things that don't work the way the regular school day works. But the expectations will still be there that students are actively engaged in their education and they're completing their assignments. What is your plan with the online extra classroom activities? Since for many students, these activities are an important part of college applications. Well, right now, I mean, we're going to work again, building by building. Our principals and teachers will work on their how they're going to deliver any kind of extracurriculars if we have them. Right now, there will be no, when we go to the hybrid model, we won't be bringing people into the building. We won't be having after school activities. Athletics to this point, as far as we know, are postponed, and we'll find that out later on in September. But as far as clubs and those kind of things, that's going to be up to the club advisors that they get appointed every year, and the principals in those buildings to make those programs work. Will all teachers' subjects require a combination of live, recorded, and written instruction? Will there be guidelines? The amount of each type of instruction should be provided? Yes, that's really what the remote learning plan will be all about. It will be about, how much live instruction we'll have, how much recorded instruction will there be, so the synchronous, asynchronous piece, as well as, assignments that are written by our for our students to be able to, understand what is due, and parents be able to have access to that as well. So yeah, so it's going to be there's going to be a combination of different types of delivery for our instruction. As students with IEPs utilize a hybrid model or remote only, I understand in person is K through 6. However, my 7th grade truly needs in-person instruction. Yeah, I mean, I understand that. I think we all understand that. I think every student in Kingston City School District should have in-person instruction. Looking at the guidelines that were put forward from the State Education Department and New York State Department of Health for how we could bring students into school, and the requirements and the restrictions that we have using the space that we have, and trying to be as clear and as simple, I guess, as possible, so we're not to confuse parents, students, and our faculty and staff. We felt this plan, and which I outlined a few weeks ago, was the best plan for Kingston at this time. Would you be able to do anything about all parents on free lunch programs to be eligible for reduced spectrum Wi-Fi service? Because right now it's only for new customers who have been without internet for the last 30 days. Most of us who never had Wi-Fi before joined in March with free installation in the first 2 months free program, but now are paying $55 a month. I don't know if I can do anything about that. Last year we were very successful working with Spectrum. We do actually, one slide that will be put out at the end of this presentation will let parents know exactly how they can apply for that reduced spectrum Wi-Fi service. But as far as how their company's practices and policies are, we can reach. We were very successful reaching out to them last year, so we will reach out to them again this year. I wasn't aware that it wasn't that you had to that wasn't available to everybody, but we can look into that and see what we can do. Will we have virtual back to school night, or for those wanting to meet teachers but are unwilling or unable to attend something in person if there's an in-person meeting? We're going to ask, our faculty staff are going to do everything they can to get to know their families and get to know their students. So for parents who we can't get to an in-person meeting, we will, I'm sure our buildings will set up other opportunities for parents to meet their teachers. And worst case scenario, if something doesn't happen and you don't get to do that, I would call your building, speak to your principal, and set up a time to meet them virtually. The virus is present in the air. What measures have been taken to ensure sufficient airflow in classrooms? Also, what is preventing Kingston City School District from considering setting up tents and holding class meetings outside? We have up-to-date modern heating and ventilation systems in all of our school buildings. Every one of our school buildings actually has new heating and ventilation systems that have been put in within the last 8 years. We have the proper airflow. We have the proper air exchange. We can actually increase the air exchange. So the requirements or the recommendations from the Department of Health is to have a certain air exchange capacity, and we can do that, and we're actually going to exceed that for this fall. A lot of people are talking about tents and having outside meetings, and I understand that. First of all, tents require architectural plans, they require drainage, they require electricity, they require a lot of different things that, it's just, we don't need to go through that because our buildings have the proper ventilation. So if teachers in buildings and principals see opportunities for teachers to go outside for some activities or some classes or PE, or even it's possible we could be doing some of our food service in that, then I think that would be a great thing to do. But having, regular class held outdoors is not something that we're planning on. My daughter was given a homework assignment with a link that took her to YouTube from JFK and gave her access to suggestions to videos that were not appropriate for her on YouTube. Is that going to happen again? That shouldn't have happened, and I don't know why that happened. Again, we're asking teachers to use our Microsoft Teams and be very very careful about anything we're linking for students or parents on the internet. As we all know that could lead somewhere where it's not supposed to lead. So that shouldn't have happened. If something like that happens to you, reach out to your building principal and let them know so they can take care of that and make sure it doesn't happen again. Will CSE assessments that did not happen in the spring take place in September, and will that be remote? I would ask you to reach out to our special education department and get that information to let you know when those will take place. If there is a spike in COVID cases, will teachers change to teaching from home rather than their building? Well, right now, again, if we look at the governor's metrics around school closures, even though we're going to remote as a precaution for the first 5 weeks, the issue for where we should consider closing schools is anywhere between a 5% and 9% of community spread, so the infection rate and community spread. Right now we have 0.06%. For us to get to a spike that would require closing buildings, 5% would be that's a long way from where we are. So if we did get to those between 5 and 9%, we would take a look and consider what was going on or what we needed to do. We know that if we return for the hybrid model, that a teacher and TA will be a team in order to meet the needs of a split classroom. Will the teacher and TA be assigned together during remote instruction in order for the student and TA to build the students and TA to build a relationship and anticipate returning to school for the hybrid model? That's going to depend. I think if we can. Right now we're assessing our human resources and who we need to put where to make things happen, in both the remote and the hybrid model. So that could happen, but I can't guarantee that. What is the protocol for buses? At 22 kids, you cannot keep them 6 feet apart. Yes, actually we can. At 22 students, we can keep them 6 feet apart. We've done the measurements. We load this bus from back to front, exit the bus from front to back, 1 student per seat sitting against the window, wearing a mask, temperature checks by parents, hopefully before they get on the bus, as well as opening windows to continue to increase airflow in the buses when the weather is appropriate. So we can create a safe bus ride for 22 students. How will chorus, choir, and voice be delivered at the high school level? Again, those are going to be remotely. Chorus and choir will be difficult, obviously, but individual voice lessons and individual instrument lessons are going to be something we're able to do. And again, I would encourage you to reach out to your building principals to find out what the details are around the scheduling, or wait till the end of August when you get your schedule. What will you do for sub coverage and/or sub training for remote learning if staff have to be out due to sickness or taking a leave due to health concerns or to care for children and family? Again, we'll be working with our substitute union to assess what our capacity is for substitutes and be able to use them to fill in when teachers are absent. Is there a discussion to prevent the chat function on Teams? In the spring, instead of being a learning platform, Teams essentially served as a Facebook type platform for senseless chatting, posting emojis, some mild teasing, etc., which I saw was quite addictive and even harmful to my young child who was never exposed to social media at this age. Who I would never expose to social media. That's a good question. We're getting an intensive training on the updates and improvements on Teams tomorrow. Monday. So that's a question that I could ask. I'm not sure if we could turn that off, or teachers can turn that on or off. But again, I can find that out, and our principals are also receiving this training. So you can ask that question of your principal when the school year begins. I'm very concerned about the lack of conversation about any sort of in-person instruction for high school and middle school. What plans are being made for in-person events learning for those students? Yeah, I mean, this is the third time I've had this question tonight, so I think it's again, and I understand it's a concern for our middle school and high school parents and their students. We are continuing to look at how we can expand the number of students who come into live in-person instruction, and B, we're hopeful. One of the people asked me earlier, when will we all be back to school? Well, hopefully that will be this year, so we won't be in this model until June. Is the school district looking at using the empty Coleman School building for classes? Well, we have actually looked at the empty Coleman School building for classes. The problem with the Coleman School building is it's not up to date. It's not up to code. It wouldn't serve our purposes at this point. By the time we were able to, and also due to education laws and regulations, we can't just lease something. We can't just walk into something. We can't just buy something. We require commissioner's approval for leasing. We require voter approval for buying. We require voter approval before we can do any capital project within a building that needs work. So to walk into a building that's not ready for students immediately wouldn't work for us. We did look at the property, but that wouldn't work for us right now. Could it work for us sometime in the future? It could. So we'll continue to look at that possibility. But for right now, for September of this year, by the time we got the permission from the voters and did our bids for our contractors and/or petitioned the commissioner for opportunity to lease that, we'd be past the 5 weeks. During in-person learning, when a student is absent and the school has not been notified by a parent, will school staff be contacting home in order to find out if the absence is COVID related? Otherwise, how else will schools know if anyone else needs to be sent home? Well, again, I mean, if your child has COVID related situation, I mean, you should let us know. You should let the Department of Health know. You should let your family practitioner know, so they can then put in place the testing and the contact tracing that's required for us to find that information out, to make sure we know if this student has been in contact with other students or teachers, so we can make sure that they quarantine, get tested, and do contact tracing around those individuals. So yeah, that's if we're in person and someone has COVID, if a student's home, we're really hoping, we really are continuing to, I continue to ask parents, to be open, to treat this as a community, to make sure that we all know if there's things we need to know, so we can keep this from being a problem in our school district and in our community. Mahar Pre-K is virtual, but other sites are in person. Can you clarify? Other sites are private businesses. They are their own business, and they make their own decisions around the regulations that they have. We are a school district with our UPK. At this time, our decision was to continue all remote for 5 weeks with our pre-K. Rather than send 3rd and 4th graders to the middle school, is it possible to use the cafeteria, gym, and other free spaces instead to spread the students out in the school building while social distancing? Actually, it's not really looking at the spaces and the appropriate spaces and the access to technology and the things we need for student instruction. Moving students into libraries and cafeterias and auditoriums is not appropriate spaces for students to be learning. Those students belong in classrooms. We can do it the way in our plan. Again, we continue to look at our plan, continue to hope to improve our plan, but right now we feel that that's the best way to deliver education to our students at this time. How can the PTAs, PTOs best support our school community at this time? Again, reach out to your building principals. Reach out to your building principals, talk to them. What are their struggles? What are the things they need? How can you work together with that school community to help during this time? And then, during the time when we come into the full or into the hybrid mode. So I think that reach out to your building principal, and offer your assistance. And I know we want all the assistance we can get in every way, whether it's ideas, whether it's help with communicating with families. We need everybody on deck here for this. So we appreciate that, and please reach out to your building principals. If a student is scheduled to start new school, will last year's parent portal sign-in still work? That's a good question. I don't know that answer. But I'm getting that answer from the side over here. So yes, their old portal sign-in will work. Teachers frequently work sick. If a teacher is running a fever but feels well enough to teach remotely from home for that day, can they? Right now, we are encouraging people to come to the buildings to work. If a teacher is too sick to come to work, we're encouraging them to take the sick day. How will disciplinary action take place if a child acts out or doesn't show up to a class on time or doesn't show up at all in a remote learning setting? Yeah, that's a good question. That's something that has been discussed frequently, and we want to continue to work with our students and work with them on understanding the etiquette around remote learning and provide them with an opportunity to get what they need. But there are always going to be students who maybe don't adhere all the time. And I think working closely with the parents is a key to this, to make sure the families know what's going on and the importance of the class and the importance of being in attendance and being engaged and making sure they're not disturbing other learners in the classroom. But it could turn into a situation if a student's not appropriate for a student to be online with other students, that they are no longer allowed into the teams, and we will provide them with another resource to get their education. Will the district be able to show parents what an elementary level distance classroom look like before in-person begins? Yes, we can absolutely do that. We have classrooms, we're setting up classrooms, mock classrooms right now. We're marking our floors, we're putting our arrows in, we're doing all the things that are required and things that you've seen if you've been in the grocery store or in any department store. So we're doing all those things, but we could easily show parents what the classrooms will look like. And again, I can tell you what they'll look like. They'll look like classrooms with 6 feet between each desk in every direction. There will be different numbers of students in many classes. So if we have, certain classrooms are larger than others, some are smaller. So some classes may have 14, some may be big enough for 16 or 17. But you'll see desks separated by 6 feet and a sufficient area in the front of the room for a teacher to teach. But we can easily show that and post those kind of things on our website and let parents see what their students will look like. We also will be describing in detail when we get closer to student attendance, the arrival and dismissal procedures, the bus procedures. All of those will be part of our safety plan that will be communicated to parents. For those of us who joined late, will we be able to access the slides shown? Yes, you can access the slides shown. They'll be up on our website tomorrow, as well as this broadcast will. Given that all students will be remote until mid-October, will parents still have to decide whether they want to continue with remote learning by September 1st, or has that deadline been extended? There was no deadline of parents letting us know. We didn't have any requests from for forms or any parents to tell us if they would or would not. Our assumption when we put our hybrid plan in place in the beginning and when we come to October is we are going to have a desk and a class assignment for every student who is eligible to come to school in person. We will have a bus and a bus seat for every student who's eligible for transportation who's coming to school when we come back in October. So we're not asking for any signatures. We're not asking for people to commit to being in school or not being in school. We know that people's circumstances change. So the students who may be keeping their home their student home for a couple of weeks, could change their mind, and then want to bring them in. We want to make sure there's a desk and a bus for those students. So we're prepared for, at least for October, for our every one of our UP K through 6th graders to have a desk and the class assignments and a bus with a bus seat. Are the high school students doing Regents this year? As far as I know, they're doing Regents. There's been no talk among the State Education Department of eliminating Regents or eliminating the 3 through 8 testing. So as far as we know, right now, the Regents schedule is still in place, and there will be Regents exams this year. Please explain how you will detect COVID in kids who are asymptomatics. I can't do that. No one can do that for the most part, unless it's part of a contact tracing, process. So, we're going to do our screenings. We're going to do everything we can to be as safe as we can. We're going to take temperatures of students that come in. But again, if students are wearing masks, if students are washing their hands, if students are keeping 6-foot distance, which is what we're putting together in our safety protocols and procedures, it reduces of that student, asymptomatic or not, spreading the virus. So again, we're encouraging, wear the mask, social distance, wash your hands. Will monitors be working at all through the 5-week remote period? Yes, monitors will be working. When will new teachers get training on online instruction to ensure that they are familiar with the new platform? We have our new teacher orientation tomorrow, actually, and they will learn more about that. So before school starts in the beginning of the year. What will PE classes look like remotely? They're going to look, however, creative as our PE teachers can be. There are New York State standards in the physical education curriculum, so we do have standards that must be met, and so our PE teachers are going to have to be creative. How they meet the standards, the activities they put together, and the lessons they put together to meet the standards set by New York State. So I think during the spring I saw some very creative things from our PE teachers, and I look forward to seeing more of that in the fall. Are face shields allowed, or the neck masks? So a face shield is allowed, but it must be accompanied by a mask. So the neck masks are allowed, the gaiter masks are allowed, and cloth masks are allowed, surgical paper masks are allowed, but if a face mask does not take the place of, a face shield does not take the place of a mask. So if face shield is worn to protect the eyes, a mask is still needed to for the nose and mouth. If a class requires a teacher and 2 TAs, will we still be working in that class during remote learning with that teacher? As far as I know right now, yes, that would be. I'm assuming you're speaking to a self-contained special education class. So as far as I know right now, yes. But if you want to know your assignment, I would recommend you reach out to your building principal. Many schools are planning to rotate in-person K through 12. I understand K-6 in-person meets some childcare needs, but it does not meet the academic needs of all students. How are parents and teachers being involved in possible changes to the hybrid plan? We're going to assess our plan as we continue to move forward. There are no right answers here, and I know some people's opinions on this are one way and some are the other. We looked at what we believe was the best way with our rationale, which I presented a couple of weeks ago for that model, and we continue to feel that that is the case, where we think that the secondary students are more capable of learning. We think remotely, but we're going to continue to look to improve it. So and really it's about space. We are committed to the K through 6 program, UP K through 6 program being live in person full time. We are continuing to look for space and other opportunities to change, I shouldn't say change, but to increase the number of students who are attending, even if it is in a rotation. If a 3rd grade student continues remote learning rather than in person, will they be taught by a teacher or a TA? They'd be taught by a teacher. We're just waiting for the next question. There you go. Will supply lists be sent out for elementary kids prior to the start of remote learning? Yes. Will the 5th and 6th graders be required to be dropped off on Andrew Street to walk up the hill? Again, the arrival procedures are going to be, developed over the next couple of weeks. I think we're going to use multiple entrances and exits from all of our buildings. So the traditional way that if you had a high school student, that you would bring them to Kingston High School may be different when our 5th and 6th graders are up there. So again, we'll communicate that, but we're developing a product, the safest arrival and dismissal procedures that we can. So with a large number of students, obviously that means multiple doors for our students to come in, have their safety checks, and then go to their classrooms. The link set out via email and text for the technology survey does not work. Will this be fixed?
It does work.
Yeah, if you would contact, call tech support, because we've tested that. We actually have more than 300 responses already since we sent that out at noon, so it does work. If you're having trouble accessing that, if you would call our tech support, and we'll help you get that that fixed up. Time will be limited due to both parents working. Will specials be mandatory? We're required by the State Education Department to deliver certain number of units and certain number of classes. So all of our classes that are required as part of the New York State Education Department's curriculum will be mandatory. What are the plans for students who need to complete labs for their classes? Yeah, that's been a lot of conversation about that, and last year some of the labs were waived. This year the guidance from the State Education Department is we can use a combination of hands-on and non and paper-based labs, as well as using technology for labs. So for the first few weeks, that's how we're going to work, using technology and using other hands-on type activities that will take the place of the labs or fulfill the requirement of the labs. Okay, waiting for one more question. I think we're just about there. Can the district check pulse ox as well in addition to the temperature checks? Shortness of breath is undetected symptom of COVID. Oh, okay, I understand that question now. We're doing what the Department of Health has told us was what we should do to have students come through. Again, I believe to test the oxygen is the finger test there. That takes a certain amount of time. Again, we're asking parents at home, screen your children before you put them on the bus. We can screen them when they come in. There are multiple symptoms of COVID-19 that may be undetectable to us, but we're going to do our best to create the safe entry into the building and a safe school day. And we're, again, using our medical director's advice as well as the Department of Health. The protocols and procedures for arrival have been spelled out for us, and we're putting those in place. Okay. I want to thank everyone for participating tonight, and just remind everyone who is interested, tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock, we'll be having another town hall to discuss the same subject matter. This meeting will be posted in the Kingston City School District YouTube channel and website if you need to refer back to any of the questions or any of the slides or any of our comments. And we will be compiling our questions and answers, a document that will be posted on our website and live there throughout this process. Again, I thank you all for participating, and I do want to call your attention to our final slide today, which would be the current spectrum offer. This will also be posted on our website, so and we'll be reaching out to parents to let them know about this through the building principals as well. So again, thank you for participating and be well.